And now, without any further delay, let's begin today's event. I would like to introduce your moderator for today, and that is Suzette Hudson, Senior Advisor Investment Promotion for the Caribbean Export Development Agency. Suzette, you now have the floor.
Great, thank you so much. And a very good morning to everyone who's joining us today for the very third episode in our e-commerce series, or Talking Exports e-commerce series, which is being put on by Caribbean Export in association with the European Union. If this is the first time you're joining us, let me give you a quick recap. We had our very first episode, which was looking at global good practices in e-commerce. And for that, we had the presenter, Ala Hassan. He is an e-commerce executive and coach with eCommerce Training Academy. And Ala spoke with us about how to transform our business with e-commerce, looking at how to succeed online in 2020, despite the challenges of COVID, how to launch an online store in 8 simple steps, how to promote your business with digital marketing. All of that information you can find on our website, and I've put the link there for those of us who want to go back and have a look at it. It was an excellent, excellent session. And coming out of that session, we had 3 winners who were particularly attentive, participating and interacting very well in terms of the questions and answers. And they were with us for the entire duration of the presentation. And so we wanted to say publicly a very special thank you and congratulations to the companies, The Cable, to Renovato, as well as to the co-founder of Brata Box and Company. These are 3 companies that have won 3 sessions with Ala to sit down for 30 minutes and talk about their e-commerce strategy. Our second episode, which was last week, Friday, had the e-commerce company, Ethniv, talking with us. We had 3 of their top experts, Gilbert, who is with us today as well, Cleo and Novia. And that session was also a very excellent one. It looked at e-commerce strategy and how to create a viable one. And if you remember, I mean, they talked about the different types of strategies that you could look at. There is a product strategy. There is, I mean, you can go and have a look at the recording, and you will be able to learn so much about how to develop your e-commerce strategy. And today's session, today, we're going to be focusing instead, we have with us, well, I wanted to mention, before I go talking about today, I wanted to mention that come next week, which is going to be our final webinar, we'll be looking at logistics, which is shipping. That will be our primary focus for next week. So please join us for that session. Don't want to forget that there are still opportunities to win sessions where you can sit down and talk with our coaches. Ethniv has said that they will offer 3 coaching sessions as well. And one of our presenters for today, which is CXP, will also be offering coaching sessions for 4 companies. So continue to stay online for the entire session, be as interactive as you can, and chances are you'll be able to win 3 sessions with Ethniv, and 4 companies will win sessions with CXP. All right, moving along, I'm Suzette Hudson. As was said earlier, I work with Caribbean Export. And for those of you who are not aware of who Caribbean Export is, we work with 15 territories in the region. Primarily, our mission is to increase competitiveness and the value of Caribbean brands. We focus mainly on investment promotion, export promotion, and trade development. Our main partners in the region are the CARICOM Secretariat and, of course, the European Union. Right now, we're implementing the 11th European Development Fund, and that is our primary focus. That's the way that we offer support to our firms through the private sector development program that we're managing. This webinar comes to you as a part of that funding support that we've received through the European Union that we're offering to firms in the Caribbean. What we do, these are the sectors that we primarily promote and offer support to. You can see those on the right side of the slide. That's in your pane right now. And our main areas I mentioned, we promote trade and development. We promote trade and investment. We look at increasing relationships with the overseas countries and territories. We look at increasing trade and investment cooperation between the Dominican Republic and the rest of CARICOM. And of course, we serve as the Secretariat for the Caribbean Association of Investment Promotion Agencies, where we have 23 member countries in the Caribbean who are participating in that association. Just to note that for our interventions on e-commerce, we want you to be aware that we will not just be focusing on training in terms of webinars, but we're hoping to put forward an entire package that includes grants, that includes policy advocacy, that includes promotion, and that also includes business coaching. So please stay tuned. Please, if you have not registered on Caribbean Export's website, please go there and register so that you receive information, and that information will come to you on everything that we're doing and that we're planning to do in the future. All right, without further ado, I want to just introduce today's webinar. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Take your pens and paper out. You have a lot that you're going to learn about e-commerce today. And we'll be looking at ICT solutions. We'll be looking at websites. We'll be looking at e-payments. We'll be looking at what to do on Amazon or what not to do, how to get secure e-payment platforms, and what are some of the things that you need to be aware of in terms of your regulatory environment when you're going to go into or are involved in e-commerce. All right, with us, as I mentioned, is our main presenter, Gilbert. And Gilbert is the CEO of Ethniv. You would have met him last week, an excellent resource. He knows all there is to know about e-commerce. So don't be afraid afterwards to ask him for his email address and to try to knock him up for some more information. I'm sure that Gilbert will be very, very willing to offer support. He is a Caribbean man at heart, and in real terms. All right. We also have CXPay with us, and CXPay, we have Louis. Louis is the managing director of Info Capital and CXPay. His bio is there, and it's also on your panel should you want to go through it again. And as I mentioned, Louis, as a Caribbean man, is also interested in making sure that that firms are able to move on in terms of e-commerce. So he's willing to work with you as well, and his company has offered support. So look forward to you talking to Louis. And then we have Tira, and Tira is an attorney at law and a legal consultant. And Tira has more than 20 years of experience in looking at the policy environment for ICT law. And so Tira will bring us her wealth of experience in terms of e-commerce and the rules and regulations and the things that you ought to know if you're entering that space. I've said a lot, and I'm going to now hand over to Gilbert, who's going to take us through the first part of the presentation. Gilbert, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to our third session at Carib Export and taking your business to the e-commerce world. We're going to start off by I'm hoping this presentation is going to be filled with a lot of information. It's going to be a lot to unpack. So as Suzette has said, we are available after to answer any question that you may have. The e-commerce in the Caribbean, there's tremendous amount of possibilities. Possibilities are endless. And I say that because when we look at what's available to us in terms of the diaspora population, who is our ready marketplace, we ought to take advantage of that. Briefly, today's agenda: choose an e-commerce channel, a brief cost and benefit analysis. So as Suzette explained, we're going to look at whether you should get into a marketplace, the advantages and disadvantages of that, whether you should start your own website, the advantages and disadvantages of that. And what we're really pushing is omni-channel e-commerce. We're going to get into all of that, and I'm going to explain to you what each of those are. Again, who we are, this is Gilbert Williams, Louis Santini, and Tira Green. Each of us will provide you with our contact information where you can reach us at the end of the session. Our first session was on being e-commerce ready. Our second is on e-commerce solutions. And our final session is going to be on logistics. I know that's a challenge in the Caribbean, so we're going to be really excited to bring the possibilities to you there. Coming up, we're going to have a poll question to see where our audience is in terms of what e-commerce channels you're considering. So when we look at e-commerce, I'm assuming, Caroline, you're pushing that already, right? When we look at e-commerce from the Caribbean, we are at such an advantage. We have seen what the first world countries have done. We have seen what has happened in the United States, what has happened in China, what has happened in India. And we can learn from their mistakes and take advantages of the lessons learned there. We also have a patriotic group of diaspora residents living in the first world countries, so-called first world countries, the United States and Europe, who remit annually $100 billion back to the Caribbean. That means that there's a constant cash flow coming into the Caribbean that we can take advantage of by providing options for them to spend that money. And that's $100 billion in formal remittances. The informal remittances in the form of sending packages and barrels back to the Caribbean is anywhere from 50 to 250 times that. If all small businesses, or if our businesses in general within the Caribbean region position themselves in the e-commerce world, they are able to take advantage and capture a significant amount of that spending. Have we had the results as yet, Caroline? Okay, she's at 30%. So please, if you can, please respond to the poll so that we could see exactly the audience that we're speaking to, and we can better tailor this conversation. But I'll continue. So yes, there's a tremendous possibilities for the Caribbean. I have traveled up and down the Caribbean, and I've encountered several businesses within the region who by all means produce some of the best products that I've seen across the world. There's no reason that these businesses should not be doing e-commerce. I know sometimes it's a scary experience. You're entering an unknown world, but we are here to help. The people at Carib Export, your local BSOs, and we're here at ETNIV as well as CXP. We're here to help you go on that journey. So I think Caroline now has the result from at least 50% of our audience. So let's see what that is like. So a lot of people are considering their own website. Some are considering an e-commerce marketplace. Some are considering, so we have 36% at their own website, 18% marketplace, and 34% at all of the above, which is great because we want to push omni-channel e-commerce, and some have no idea. Okay, great. So let's move on. So e-commerce channels, there are a couple of channels that you can take. Building your own e-commerce website, retail and wholesale. That is something that we must consider, not just retail, but wholesale as well. So wholesale allows you to move your products much faster, but I know the facilities for doing so are often an additional challenge, but it's well worth the investment. Selling on a platform or marketplace, again, you can do this retail and wholesale. There are a few options available to us in the Caribbean, but we're going to explore what those options are outside of the Caribbean and within the Caribbean. Social media or mobile e-commerce. Easier, Facebook is now available for doing business via your mobile device, so is WhatsApp. And as we're pushing a blended solution, which is called omni-channel e-commerce. I mean, when you think about it, you have to look at it as, all right, I'm currently selling in my store, but I have a mall a store within a mall that wants to carry my product. Why would I not take that opportunity? That's the advantage of doing an omni-channel. So we jump into whether you would own your own e-commerce website or not. Here are the advantages. Legitimacy. Having your own website speaks volume in a world where there's uncertainty and risk. It says, yes, we are legitimate, we're here, and here's where you can find us. Owning and controlling your own brand, that is critical. So you speak to your consumers, your customers, you interact with them, and establishing a brand that says, yes, we are trustworthy. Branding is about trustworthiness. Right? Owning your own customers. So when you own your own website and your customers are interacting with you, they're yours. You could speak to them constantly and consistently. That often doesn't happen on e-commerce platforms. Omnichannel sales. So you have your own website, whilst you still operate on a platform or mobile. That is critical as well, because now a consumer or a customer can now find you in multiple places. Now, if I can find you in multiple places, it says, well, again, you're legitimate, because now I can find you several places in terms of people speaking about you. Two, so it increased diversity. If one channel goes down, you have several other channels that you're selling from, which also reduces the risk that you're taking by just selling from one platform. We're going to go into some of that risk as we talk about selling on platforms and e-commerce marketplaces where they can cut you off because you have no control over that space. Data analysis and reporting, which is critical. You can build that into your website, into your own e-commerce space. And that information is important because you as a small business or a business operating with limited resources have to properly allocate those scarce resources. So how and where do I spend my marketing dollars? Having that data analysis is critical. The challenges. So within the Caribbean region, some of the challenges are payment solutions, which we have had over the recent time. We have quite a few people who are stepping into the space to help solve that, but it has not been an easy journey. One of our partners here today, CXP, is going to take you through that journey that they are proficient at providing. Driving the sales on a platform or marketplace, the customers are already there. Right? We give an example of that in our next section and our follow-up slides. So driving sales is pretty tough. Now you have to go out and bring customers to your website. The operational expenses of having your own website can be kind of steep. All right, so you have to have the knowledge base, the security, the constant update of your equipment and your software. The upfront cost is also very high. I have a sample sheet of what those costs are going to be, some sample costs. You see that coming up. Security, the risk of security. What if my site gets hacked? What if my site gets taken over by illegitimate people? That type of stuff. How do I protect my customers' data? Knowledge base and talent. Do you have the people on staff who are going to take care of what needs to be taken care of on your daily maintenance? Do I have a sales management staff? Do I have a customer relations management staff? Do I have software update people who can actually maintain the site? Logistics. How do I take care of logistics? Who handles the packing, the pickup, the delivery, the certification that it was delivered, that what I said was delivered was actually delivered? Who takes care of all of that? And operations, as I mentioned earlier, inventory management, product management, a point of sale system. ERP integration can be very, very costly. We have seen ERP integration that runs anywhere from $20,000 to upwards of $3 million just to have a proper ERP, which is enterprise resource planning. So all these tools that I've mentioned, this is how you get your business to be e-commerce ready. Owning your own e-commerce website doesn't mean building your own. You could also do white label. There are white label options that you can get involved in. That's where you take a platform or a website that is off the shelf and you customize it to look like to suit your brand and your products. As selling on an e-commerce platform, I know this is a topic that Suzette is very interested in because she often wants to explore the possibilities for Caribbean business to do business on spaces like Amazon or Etsy or eBay. One, low upfront cost. there is always a cost to doing business online. I do not like to consider it a cost. It's an investment, right? And how much you're willing to pay, willing to invest makes a big difference in the type of platform you get on and how your products are seen. Customer traffic already there. So prior, we talk about if you own your own website, you have the challenge of bringing customers to that site. On a platform, the customers are typically there, and it's a platform and marketplace that they trust. For instance, again, Amazon, eBay, Etsy, those sites, you trust them. That's why you're there. You can go there, you can get a product. No hardware and software maintenance to you, so that reduces your operational costs. No risk or reduced risk because you don't have to deal with the security of the data or PCI maintenance when you actually do have, you're accepting payment on your website. So you could look at this, an example of this is brick and mortar. In the brick and mortar world, we have what is called the antique mile here or the garment district here in the United States. These are areas where if you're looking for antique, there are hundreds of stores on the antique mile. So I'm looking for antique, I can find my products on the antique mile. I could go from store to store. That's one of the advantages of selling on e-commerce there. Built-in payment solutions. So you don't have to worry about getting a payment gateway on your own site. And a number of these sites have logistics options built into them. So you don't have to worry about fulfilled by Amazon and several other options that are there where you actually take care of your products. Packing, shipping, and delivery. The challenges of doing so. Invisible fees are anywhere from 5 to 20%. Right? So that's typical. A lot of the requirements are geared towards European and American companies, business registration and bank account in the United States. Here I can mention Amazon. Amazon currently only allows business from 3 Caribbean countries. That's Haiti, Domrep, and Trinidad. There's, for some reason, there's a stigma on doing business in the Caribbean, one that I completely disagree with. I think it comes from a complete misunderstanding, we can use other terms there, of how we do business in the Caribbean. Right? But currently, there are only 3 countries that are allowed to do business on Amazon legally, unless you have a US bank account or a European bank account. The not so visible fees, product prep, like if you were to sell your products on Walmart or even Amazon again, which Amazon does provide a marketplace for products. Products could be shipped to them. They would package that. They would make sure that everything gets delivered and all the pricing is warehousing and all that stuff is done properly. Those fees are also significant. So rather than being 5 and 20%, you could find that your fees for selling products in these sites could go from 5 and 20 to 40 and 60% easily. So, and sometimes it's definitely worth it because you could focus on what your core competence is. You could focus on making your product or delivering your service, and they take care of all of that. So this is when you go back to our previous session where we talk about product readiness. You have to make sure that your pricing suits the marketplace that you're going to sell on. So you can make those adjustments. On platforms, you do not own your own customers. The customers are not yours. The customers belong to the platform. And the platform typically limits your interaction with those customers, right? And that's one of the things, there's several of the things that we do not do on Etnib. We allow you to communicate and build relationships with your customers because that's really important because we see ourselves as a community, right? The competition on a number of these sites is fierce, even from the hosts themselves. So again, I go back to examples of Amazon, where Amazon would look at your statistics, see what you're doing, and if that works for them, they would typically copy that formula, make their own products, and compete with you. I mean, it's in my opinion, it's unscrupulous for them. It's business. You have limited data analysis and no real access to an ERP solution. So our guidance in terms of taking your business to the e-commerce world, one, definitely you have to try an omni-channel solution. It mitigates a number of the risks. I know it's a little bit more challenged now, and not only am I worrying about one channel. I'm not just worrying about my website or a platform or a mobile e-commerce. I have to now concern myself with 3 different platforms. So my suggestion is start with an e-commerce platform or mobile marketing. So preferably one that supports you through the entire process. Yes, e-commerce can be a scary place, but once you have the support that you need from that platform, it is a profitable space for you to be in, especially people functioning and operating within the Caribbean space. If you have resources, own your own e-commerce website while continuing to sell on marketplaces. If your resources are scarce, build a business information website where you could continue to sell while you continue to sell in the marketplace. So if you want to do a corporate website where you continue to sell stuff on the marketplace, but you have a bit of a corporate website, which becomes more than anything else a content infomercial where people read your story, they read about you, they read about your product. That interaction, that communications is critical for legitimacy and selling your products. Don't see it as a side on, this is just something that I do just incidentally. No, it's a requirement. You have to constantly sell yourself while you sell your products. There's a unique benefit of doing business in the Caribbean, as I mentioned before. We call this as local marketing. So you can market locally. And this is one of the questions that we got in last week's session. So you market locally, but because we in the diaspora tend to be always involved in what is going on in the Caribbean. We get the Caribbean newspapers, whether it's the Gleaner or the Vincentian or the News, the different newspapers across the Caribbean. We get that. We listen to Caribbean radio stations in the United States and in Europe. So by marketing locally, you do not have to pay that high cost of marketing in major metropolitan areas. Big advantage for you again. Plan and develop your products to appeal to local as well as global customers. Again, I am a global customer. I would love to be able to purchase products in the Caribbean, but you can market and you reach to me by developing products in your local market at a high standard. So you don't have to do this twice or having to change your market strategy around your product significantly. So if I do the proper labeling, you do the proper labeling on your products locally, and you win over the hearts and mind of your local customers, they become your evangelists. They go out and they talk about your products. They talk about your products on social media, which reaches me here, right? So plan the development of your products around that whole idea. That is, register your business with a local authoritative body, whether it's your government, your BSOs. This again increases your legitimacy in the eyes of the consumers. Engage local policymakers. There are some stringent export laws that we need to deal with within the region. Approach your policymakers. You're a business person. You're making a serious investment in taking your business to a different level. You have to ensure that you have the support of those people that you have empowered. So you reach out to them and you say, hey, the policies and the practices and investment that we need to boost e-commerce within the region. Move your brick and mortar customers online. Continue to serve them well, and this will start a ground sale. A ground sale, again, is just a movement of people who continue to talk about your business. It's free advertising for you. Treat them well. Serve them well. Provide products that bring value and meaning to your customers. Use your local transportation system as a fleet of distribution vehicles. That we're going to get into next week when we talk about logistics. It's a pretty exciting thing that ETNEV has developed, where we can now use local transportation, your minibus, your maxis, your robots, to deliver packages across your local markets. So here I have a small sample or example of what e-commerce cost is if you choose to develop your own website. For a very small website, we have about $20,000, a mid-sized website, giving you some of these things that I have here, the data, the SEO is built in, all that stuff, $80,000. And if you go into an enterprise level website, again, this is about, and these are just startup costs. Don't have the time to go into each of these. I did pick a sample of 2 sites that I like that I can show you what the difference is between selling products and selling and getting your business ready and selling your business as well as your products. So this is an absolutely fascinating business that I've had the privilege of working with in Jamaica. It's Smart Choice.
And Bernard has come a long way in the development of his product and his website, right? So he now has an entire website that is dedicated to his product. But if you look at the product of the website itself, it's just product. It's very static, right? He has all the different elements involved here that is great. All the different payment options and his communication options are seamless. So you have WhatsApp, he have chat, he has SMS, great for communicating. But that also now requires him to be constantly monitoring those. Difference in this website that I'm going to show you, it involves people and it involves a story. So products begin to sell themselves. There's an interaction between people and product. And this sort of store owner is talking about himself and how he's moving his product and why he's made these products. That's constant interaction with your consumers and your customers without you having to take the time to do so. So it reduces your operational costs. So when you're building websites, these are little things that do not cost a significant amount to make a big difference in how you drive traffic and the loyalty of that traffic. Suzette, I don't know if you want to take questions at this point in time. I think your mic is mute, Suzette.
All right, there we go.
Yeah.
We do have a couple of questions that are related to this area. Someone is still asking what omnichannel means. So maybe if you could just say it one more time, maybe just to make sure they understand. Someone is asking about white label, and I think someone else had a question about the challenges you mentioned, that the challenges to a website are very similar to those for the brick and mortar operation, that they're not very unique. Is there anything that is increasingly different about operating online as against opening a store? I think we can take those for now.
Okay, that's great. Those are excellent questions. So omnichannel again, right? So currently you're selling, if you have a storefront, that's a channel. That's a place where you sell your products. So channels are basically a place where you offer your products to the market. So you can do an e-commerce website, which becomes another channel. So now you're doing brick and mortar and you're doing e-commerce. And now you can diversify e-commerce to be doing on a payment on a platform or marketplace and your own website. So that's an additional 2 channels. That's now 3 channels. And then you could do mobile sales via WhatsApp or Facebook. So that's now 3 different channels that you're doing. Now there's an additional channel, which is as a sub-channel, which you can also do your products via wholesale. So omni-channel is always a different way. You open up several income streams when you do omni-channel. Yes, it's a little bit more challenge to manage all of that because you have to have proper support tools in place, like POS, possibly, definitely inventory management, and decide what amount of your products you're going to put in each channel. 2, white labeling. Friends, this is a shameless plug, but we do white labeling. So you can come to us and say, can we take your platform and turn it into our website? And we will rip out everything that says that name and we'll rebrand it. So let's say, like Smart Choice comes to us and say, well, we want to use your platform. And we will rip out everything that says that name and turn it into Smart Choice, delivering not just the e-commerce front-facing aspect of it, but the tools that are in the background. We have a tremendous point of sales, inventory management, customer management, or customer engagement, as we call it. Another very unique feature that we now have put in place is authenticity. So we know Caribbean products have a challenge. A lot of projects have challenge of being counterfeited, right? So what we have done, we have created a labeling system where you can label every product that you produce with an individual stamp that is unique across the globe. A shopper buying a product, one of your products, can scan that product and know whether it's authentic or whether it's counterfeited. So we built all of that into our system. The question on the challenges, well, if you think about it, 10% of e-commerce from a vendor's perspective is online. 10%, and that might be a whole lot. The majority of e-commerce from a vendor perspective takes place in the real world. It's not online. It's how you handle your products. So hence, the challenges are very similar, right? For the consumer, everything happens in this magical cloud where they click and things end up in their cart and end up in their house. But for you, the vendors, everything is real. It's just like running a brick and mortar. But now there's a technical requirements to making sure that your products get sold and sold properly, and that there's a constant interaction with you and your consumers, you and your community. All right, so I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, again, we're available for follow-up. So you can reach out to us, Suzette and the people at Carib Export, and the folks at Carib Export can reach out to me anytime for supporting anyone in the audience.
Fantastic.
So now we're gonna talk about payment solutions, right? And there's several payment solutions that are available. A lot of them are now upcoming. I have a slide. Again, we're going to share these slides with you. Today, CXP has the forum. They have stepped up and they are doing a tremendous job within the region. But here are a couple of other options that are available. We have JAD, which is available in St. Kitts and Nevis, SwiftPay in St. Vincent, Squeeze Cash in St. Vincent, First Atlantic, which is available through your local banks, several of the local banks, RBTT, which currently operates in 17 countries. Again, I think they have a relationship with First Atlantic, CXPay, which again is fantastic, and they have taken the time to come and teach you and to walk you through the journey of what it means to accept payments on your system. WePay, which operates in and CXPay operates in 23 Caribbean countries. WePay, 4 Caribbean countries, and SurePay. So next set of poll questions, and then I hand it over to Suzette and Louis.
All right. Thank you very much, Gilbert. On your screen right now is our next poll question. We're going to ask you to just click that button that you see there beside the answer of your choice. The question is, what has been your biggest challenge selling products or services via e-commerce? Is it lack of payment solutions? Is it lack of technical support? Is it lack of information on what to do, where to go, or is it, that you have any challenges at all? That all is well. All right, so please let us hear what your responses are. Your responses will guide our next presenter, Louis, who will speak to us about the CXP e-payment solution. All right, we'll just hang on a little bit longer while we hear from you.
Can you hear me?
I hear you. All right, Louis, you want to go ahead? We're at 40% in terms of the poll results. We just wanted to show that before so that you can see what people think in terms of payment solutions.
Very good. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Obviously, Gilbert, do we need to pause for the results?
Sure. Let's mention them. So, wow, almost 50% of those who have responded have said that they have a lack of payment solutions. Louis, you need to help people out here. And then we have almost 30% of our surveyors have said there's a lack of information. And then that 20% in terms of lack of technical support is also very high. I'm handing over to you now.
All right, thank you very much. It isn't very surprising, regretfully. It's the information that we do get from time to time, and we are aware of these challenges. So hopefully with the information that I'll be sharing with you, will in any case make some things easier, more transparent, and also more efficient for those merchants who are looking for a payment solution. So once again, thank you very much for allowing me to share the stage and tell you a little bit about CXP. As you can tell from the presentation, Gilbert, there's a lot that comes into play when you're engaging or participating in e-commerce. So he laid the groundwork as to the different facets that you need to cover. We like to approach it from an opposite direction, since our specialty is payment solutions. And the philosophy or the idea that we have is that when you have a business, you're typically offering something, a service or a product, and in the end, you need to get paid. Otherwise, you don't have a business. So oftentimes what we do see in the equation is when people start, they have their business, then at some point they make a decision that they're going to go online with the business. Some people start with brand new concepts, etc. So they make the jump straight into e-commerce, which is great. But essentially what you should do is explore the possibilities for receiving payments first. It's very good. It's very effective to differentiate yourself, having a nice website that's very engaging, nice images, great user experience. But if you struggle to collect or receive payments, then essentially a lot of the effort is not worth it. And oftentimes what we do see is that people have planned everything that they have. And at the last stage, they come and explore what payment options are available for them. Sometimes that's too late because you may have chosen a platform that's not compatible with a particular payment provider, with some of the banks that do offer the acquiring service. Maybe you're looking for particular payment solutions or a certain way that you would like to collect payments. And a lot of it goes hand in hand with the platform that you choose or the methods that you want to receive. In any case, at CXPay for the past few years, we've focused on the Caribbean as our main market. We are based out of Curacao and have a representative office in Aruba. But we've been servicing merchants across the region. And in the next slide, you will see what we have expanded our services to. There is one of the biggest challenges in the Caribbean is that besides having the market being so fragmented, we have a bunch of countries, islands existing next to each other, that together we form a significant body of 40 to 45 million people. But some of it are very, very tiny markets, which makes it very challenging when you're looking for solutions, because typically everything that's related to e-commerce or to what we like to call fintech these days is based on volume. It's based on critical mass, something that obviously we do not have in the Caribbean. In any case, not per individual country. And because of that, it oftentimes is difficult to get the exact solution that you're looking for simply because of lack of volume, it might not be readily available for you. So our efforts the past few years have been trying to specialize ourselves in some of these areas. As we started with the basic or core service or product is the payment gateway function, whereby in partnership with various banks throughout the region, we can offer a solution for the merchants to receive or collect payments online. But along the way, we've expanded into bringing other types of other types of solutions and products to merchants in the region. Why? Because we do recognize that in order to achieve some of these things on your own, or connecting the dots to get to a crowdfunding platform, or to have cashless payment solutions typically used for events, having hardware to accommodate or facilitate your business. And last but not least, an e-wallet solution can be challenging. So what I will be focusing on, as Gilbert was so good and effective and giving you all the ins and outs about e-commerce, is to focus more specifically on the payment solutions, and that, based on the statistics we just saw, oftentimes is one of the biggest hurdles for merchants. On the next slide, you will see the partner network that we have established. Why is this important? Because essentially in the world of payments, it's not one company who can offer you something. in the back or in the front or on the side, there are always a whole set of partners, an acquiring partner, an issuing partner, a processor, a payment gateway, etc., Visa and MasterCard. So it is important, based on the models that are often applied in this region, that you have the partnerships in place. It's because of these partnerships that we can accommodate the merchants that we have. In the Dutch Caribbean, we have our own set of banks, like the MCB Group, which is the largest with a presence on all the Dutch Caribbean islands. But in the region, we have partnerships with Scotiabank, we have partnerships with First Caribbean that allows us then to have a presence in the various islands. And because of that, we have succeeded in servicing merchants on many different territories. So the partnership is essential. It gives us a certain level of flexibility. There are a bunch of other banks that we could work with, but oftentimes that is the choice of the bank to want to work with certain payment providers. For us, we have our platform is compatible with we integrated with over 100 different processors. The chances are usually slim that we're not compatible with a particular bank or processor. But in the end, it needs to come together, and they need to want to work with one another. The page that you see now is another example of the explosion that has taken place the last years, whereby we are mostly familiar with Visa and MasterCard, American Express, Discover as payment methods. Essentially, what you've seen is an evolution and quite a revolution in terms of other payment methods that have been developed or created on a per market or per country basis. Here is what you see is that through another solution that we offer alongside the credit cards is that we can offer various other local payment methods. So if, for example, Curaçao being part of the Dutch Caribbean, and we're Dutch meaning that we have a very strong link with the Netherlands, typically we do have a lot of business, mostly in the tourism sector, that is dependent on Dutch travelers or Dutch guests. So when a lot of merchants here, in addition to Visa and MasterCard, choose to add Ideal, which is the local payment method for the Netherlands. If you have a market or a product that you're catering to the Chinese, you can choose Alipay. If you have a lot of Germans making use of your products or services, you can add SoFar Banking, and we can help facilitate this, which means that it gives you more flexibility to cater to your audience and offer them more methods to pay. On the next slide, what we will show you is that e-commerce or e-payments is oftentimes considered as having to have a website, and where people then select a product or service and go to a checkout page and pay. However, there are various different business models out there, people that use different platforms. So what we have as part of our solution is a so-called hosted payment page that allows it to be tailored based on your specific needs. But also, if your business is mostly based on invoicing and not necessarily driven by a website with a shopping cart, you can then submit this an e-link as part of the invoice that you send out to your audience, to your clients. And by clicking on this link, we need to go to the next slide so people can actually see what I'm referring to. And the host, the one, yeah, sorry, okay. I see that I jumped one, but I'll get back to this one in a second. What you see here is also another step, that development that we did is we understand the flexibility that merchants need. And oftentimes in the search to deliver their products and services, they are relying on certain softwares or platforms that they choose to build their website on. And in order to provide much of that flexibility, we have ensured that we are compatible or have integration with various different booking softwares out there. Resdi, for one, has a lot of merchants in the Caribbean that use it. Tour operators, for example, select this method, but we have different ones, HQ rental software, And this allows us to give some flexibility to those merchants or companies that operate these platforms, knowing that in the back, they have a payment solution already integrated. On the next slide is what I just started telling you about. No, one back, please. Yes, this is the hosted payment page I was mentioning and referring to. So if you do not have a website with a shopping cart or a checkout button, the hosted payment page still provides you with the same option and flexibility, where you send out an invoice, you provide a link. By clicking on it, this page will open up. We're seeing the wrong slide. It's the next one. Yes, that's one. Okay, so the hosted payment page, essentially, this is what the client, the user, will be seeing. So here you have skipped the part that you need to build a robust platform or a website to accommodate someone to pay. And the hosted payment page allows a lot of service providers that typically send invoices the same flexibility. Or this could be used alongside a Facebook page, etc., where you have a payment button. So there's a lot of possibilities for keeping the costs low and giving you more options to cater to your audience and still get paid using the modern methods. What else is there to offer? When you, one slide back, please. Slide 44. Yeah. What else is there to offer alongside the traditional gateway solution for payments? Our platform comes handy with a lot of other tools that, depending on your service model, you can choose or incorporate or choose to add. There's a customer vault allowing you to store card info if you have a repeat business or a subscription-based type of services. There's iSpy fraud for additional security. There is an integration with QuickBooks. So there's a bunch of features that, depending on the model or the service that you're providing, that can be integrated to further enhance your offering to the market. A lot of these things we'll happily discuss with you if you are interested or if you're curious to know how these could add value to your offering. The next page is as we see a crossover these days of businesses models that shift between brick and mortar, physical store, or online, there's always an element where people want to or will need hardware to support their business activities. One phenomenon that we've seen here, for example, in Curacao during the lockdown caused by COVID-19, is that immediately when they announced the lockdown, businesses realized that they were in big trouble, mostly the restaurants, the supermarkets, etc. So what happened is that they switched to an online offering, which many of them did not have previously. That in itself is was a great development. However, what you see is that part, you saw a conversion to an e-commerce stage or platform. Yet when it came to the payment part, that was left out. So the POS that typically was inside to the store now was used curbside or on the road, where still people were touching device, buttons, taking out a card, exchanging, whether you were using a glove or not. But the whole experience and efficiency of e-commerce was left out, or e-payments was left out. They could have completed the whole cycle by having someone place an order online, paying for it, and also ensuring that whenever you leave the store or whatever, you know that you have your money in your pocket, virtually in this case. But these hardware solutions are there to support the business models whereby a physical contact is still required or needed. And this way we can help push the information to the same gateway account. Then on the next, here we have POS solution examples in a similar thought whereby a lot of stores these days or merchants are operating where information is pushed from. It's all in the category of hardware. So I would rather skip to the next stage and discuss a new solution that we've introduced late last year. There's a lot of movement in the Caribbean, as we noted, Curacao in particular, but also sister island Aruba and Jamaica, St. Martin, Trinidad, where there is a lot of events taking place. In fact, many of these islands have started new activities whereby they are catering to event tourism, concerts, food festivals, etc. But what used to happen typically is that at these events, it was either cash only, or it was token based, and these tokens being typically or paper tokens or plastic tokens that for efficiency, security, they were fraud prone, but also user experience wise was a struggle. So what we at CXPay did is we started a partnership whereby through the label CX Events, we bring event token solutions to the market, offering a cashless experience to both the event organizer and the attendees of the event. Using a wristband or a card, you clearly enhance the efficiency and the experience of the event, making it a lot more secure, and at the same time, collecting very rich data throughout the event and certainly at the end. So you know next time, this bar number 1 outperformed bar number 2, or maybe at between 7 and 8, there was a peak moment at certain bars. You can actually see clear distinction what premium drinks or for example, or what food items are outperforming or underperforming. And so in addition to other aspects like loyalty programs that can be tied into these solutions and then gift cards that can be created with the same technology, suddenly you have a cashless solution that brings a lot more value to an event than the traditional way of doing things. Next is the latest product or product actually that we launched in the market. Here in Curacao, it's still in beta stage, but we're about to take it live as we bring more and more users on board. Is we launched an e-wallet or a mobile payment app called Chip. It's in partnership with another local company here in Curacao. We came together to analyze the market, and Chip is a peer-to-peer solution whereby people can send money to one another. But at the same time, it will be used for making purchases with merchants. So especially for the unbanked category of the population, this can be a great solution. And we're pushing it now as it is a technology that you're seeing become more and more common in larger markets, Europe, Asia, US, not to mention, where there's various of these solutions in place. The reason why it's so difficult, one of the most frequently heard points in the market when we present our payment solutions is people always ask, are you like PayPal? Or they long for PayPal to be part of the equation in the offering here. Now, the issue is that as everything is based on volume, it makes it very difficult for these bigger platforms to settle in these small markets. We are aware of these shortcomings, and because of that, through our efforts and technology and experience that we have, we were able to develop a product and take it to the market. And right now we're seeing the buy-in from the audience, and soon we will have it fully operational. This is a model, or this is a solution that can easily, or fairly easily, with the right partners on the ground, be copy-pasted to other markets in the region. So we're using Curacao as an important test case to see at what stage and what level we can copy-paste this model to other markets. The next few, or the next page, or the next slide, I believe, still shows some Okay, this is another feature that during the lockdown or the high point of the COVID crisis, we see that there was a lot of nice goodwill initiatives being introduced by various different groups, where people were trying to do good, collect money, taking care of of others. And one often heard cry was that they wanted to do so through crowdfunding platforms. Now, some of the challenges with crowdfunding platforms is that they're typically in the US, or in the case of Curacao with its Dutch ties, there are Dutch platforms or European platforms, with the challenge that by doing so, oftentimes you will have your money settled in that particular country. And here in Curacao, therefore, what we did is we developed a crowdfunding platform that is donation-based, whereby we made it more more easy and accessible to local organizations and groups to participate and initiate their own groups, collect money on behalf of good causes, and have the money settled in a trusted bank here in Curacao that they're all familiar with, and therefore also gain easier and quicker access to those monies. It's something that also here again can be easily copy-pasted to another market with the right partnership of the banks. So we are proud that we were able to make this switch quickly and bring the solution to the market. Where do we have merchants at the moment in the Caribbean? Now, this is an overview of territories where currently we are assisting clients. As you can see, there's a strong presence in various islands in the Caribbean, but we also have merchants outside of the region. Not many, as that is not necessarily our specialty, but because of the flexibility and the compatibility that we have with our platform, essentially we could cater or service merchants across the globe. Obviously, there's fierce competition everywhere, and you need to have the right resources. So for now, we are focusing our attention on the Caribbean region. And with that, I gave you a quick overview of the solutions that CXPay has in store, that we have readily available to assist your company. And we look forward to any questions that you have that we can address. But more importantly, we look forward to welcoming you as merchant and helping you start collecting payments online.
Louis, thank you very much. We are running short on time, but we are also aware that you have to step away. So before our show is over. But we have a couple of questions. The audience has a couple of questions for you. There was one about PayPal, which you ably predicted. So I think that question has been taken care of. There's another where someone was asking if you could say a little bit more about the fees that CXP charges. A question came about Scotiabank and the fact that it was bought by the Republic Bank, and they wanted to know if you had a partnership with them. That was very important. Okay. And I believe there was one other question which I thought was very important. I'm going to have a quick look at the screen to see if I can find it. Yes, here it is. It says, with CXPay's system, does the bank account, is the bank account attached to your CXP account, or is it in local currency, or can it be in a different currency with a FX conversion happening automatically? I think those are the only questions we can take right now because we still have one other presenter. But if you could address those questions, Louis.
Yeah, let me start with the last one. It's multi-currency to the extent that we can accommodate essentially any currency. It depends on what currency the processor, the bank, is allowing. If it's local currency, then we can accommodate that. Our platform is flexible. If it's US dollar, euro, it depends again on what the processing allows. And that is oftentimes determined by either the country itself. If there are rules in certain countries, I believe in Trinidad, by law, everything needs to be transacted in TT dollars. But in others, it's US dollar, if it's euro, etc. Our platform is flexible and can accommodate multi-currency. With regards to PayPal, for example, what I can say about it is this. PayPal is volume-based, and essentially PayPal is an e-wallet. So because of that, they retain third-party funds. That's how e-wallets function. And because of that reason, PayPal needs to have a local license in every territory where they are active. Now, typically, since payments, fintech, etc., is all volume-based, they're going to go to markets where there's volume. Typically, the small Caribbean nations are not attractive for them because the business model, it just doesn't add up. So oftentimes people say it's because of the banks that oppose it, it's because of the central bank that oppose it. No, it's PayPal who simply does not have an appetite to come to this region, or some of them at least, because the markets are so small. But what we often say is this: when there's a statistic that proves this, is that for those people that are not residents of the United States, like all of us here, and have a PayPal account, typically that PayPal account is funded by a credit card, either Visa or MasterCard. It is that same Visa or MasterCard that you would use if you're paying on any online platform that allows, that accepts Visa and MasterCard. So the fact, obviously, there's no discussion that PayPal is very easy to use and convenient, but it's not as if PayPal is not accepted across the Caribbean that suddenly merchants cannot receive payments. You have a button, Visa and MasterCard, on your website, and voila, you're collecting the same type of payments in the same secure manner. So that is important to know. Don't get caught on PayPal not being available. You can still have tons of options to receive payments online. The other question, Suzette, was related to...
if you could tell me a little bit about your fees, and I think someone wanted to know if you have relationships with Republic Bank, but we are going to limit to 2 minutes though, Lewis, because we're running out of time.
I can be quick about it. We are aware of the move out of Scotiabank and Republic Bank moving in. However, what I can say is our relationship still on all the territories that we work with, that were initially with Scotiabank, still go through the same contacts. So in all probability, we have not been made aware that in our partnership that has been affected or not. We're still catering to the same merchants with the same connections. And it is to be assumed that if at some point that hard switch is made, that we still have the same compatibility and will be able to do so in offering the service through Republic Bank. With regards to the fees, what's important to note that the model that we apply is that there's always a partner bank that offers the solution. And I think there was also a question with regards to the account. So the way it works is that the bank will provide an e-merchant account. That's the account on which the payments that are processed online are settled on. We provide the gateway connection, the gateway account. And because of this model, there are two fees. One that the bank charges to the merchant, and one that we as CXPay offer to the merchant. Now, typically, the bank has the discretion that they can negotiate the fees directly with the merchant. So we are not part of that discussion. And so it can vary on risk, on size, on business type. But our fees are quite straightforward. We have a one-time setup fee of $100 to set up the account, do the integration, testing, etc. We charge $15 monthly for the gateway account. We offer a 0.25%, so that's 0.25% on the transaction amount. And we offer 25 cents a quarter for every transaction. That is our pricing model. And on top of that, you would need to add the fees by the bank. But because we work with multiple banks and they all have their own fees, it's difficult for us to give a complete pricing because it may vary from territory or banks, etc.
Okay, thank you so much, Louis. Just so our audience is aware that we will have information contact information for Louis available. We will forward that information out on all our speakers today, so that if you have additional questions that were not answered, we will be able to have them directly answer. Thank you very much, Louis. Now, we were supposed to move on into another poll, but we're going to jump right ahead into the presentation by our next presenter, Tira. Tira, thank you for being so patient and for waiting patiently on us. Tira is going to immediately talk to us about policies. And let's just move this along. She's going to talk to us about policies and practices. Tira, I'm going to hand over to you. You unfortunately only have 15 minutes. And hopefully we'll be able to take one or two questions after.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I will try to go to the presentation quickly because I would really like to have your questions and your input on it. I've been asked to speak about the key policies and practices in the region in e-commerce. So I have limited it to just deal with electronic transactions and something basic on data protection and identity verification. Now, with respect to electronic transactions, we have electronic filing, contracts, signatures, and payments. And now with COVID and everyone's, both government and private sectors, trying to do more transactions electronically, there's been a lot of issues, questions, countries rushing to change their laws, countries unsure if they can do things legally. And I myself personally have had quite a lot of questions and from various persons, both public and private sectors, on what they can and cannot do. And in getting these questions and advising these governments, I have realized that there's something that a lot of people aren't aware of. And I thought that is what I will speak of today, because you might not be aware of it yourself, both the persons who are in the NGOs, the business persons, the other consultants, as well as the few, I understand there's some government officials here. And that is that every country in CARIFORUM, save Guyana, has an Electronic Transactions Act. And these Electronic Transactions Act were put in place specifically to enable e-commerce and e-government. And for some reason, a lot of people aren't aware of that, and a lot of people are not aware that these Electronic Transactions Act as an omnibus law. So in each country, they actually have the effect of the Electronic Transactions Act is that it has actually amended almost all the laws of your country so that you can actually conduct businesses. So for instance, I can give you an example of what happened recently. An insurance company asked me, can they issue the insurance certificates electronically? And I said, of course, because in Trinidad and Tobago, on the Insurance Act, they state that the policy has to be issued on black and white and paper and printed, etc. But that came from 1935. The Electronic Transactions Act of Trinidad and Tobago is 2011. And there are several specific provisions of that Electronic Transactions Act that say in any enactment or any law where there's a reference to writing, to paper, to copies, to records, that those things can be done electronically. And I have realized that not only private, persons in the private sector, but realizing public sector, even government officials, including lawyers in the government, don't even know that. So I would like to hear at the end from the members if you were aware of that and if you are actually having problems in trying to get done illegally. So, for instance, there was a question as well as to when during lockdown phase when different government agencies were closing, many heads of departments were not aware that legally they can just have the system up. People can do searches, say searches for their deeds or company searches online, and it's perfectly legal. They can register trademarks and patents and file their applications. They can receive notices from the trademark offices or companies registry. They can get their licenses online. And this is all outside the ambit of where you actually have established trade portals such as TT BizLink. Electronic signatures, almost every law, every country has a law. And sorry, I just realized in addition to Guyana, St. Lucia also does not have the ETA, but that is supposed to be remedied within this month. But every other country in CARIFORUM has a law that allows electronic signature. And this is a problem that a lot of persons are having, such as now you can't really travel to sign contracts, including contracts with the government. And for some reason, a lot of government officials are insisting that it can be done electronically, completely unaware that the law actually made provisions for that. In some cases, the laws are actually like 2006 or 2011. It's been there a decade and a half. All right. I wanted to mention that there are two types of ETAs. So we have the older ones, such as Anguilla, Barbados, British Virgin Islands, which is also now amending theirs. Belize, which is also now amending theirs. Cayman Islands, the Bahamas and Jamaica are largely based on the UNCITRAL model law on electronic commerce, whereas the newer ones, such as Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, contains provisions of the UN Convention on Electronic Contracting. So my advice is when you are in the government or you are lobbying the government for changes, that you want the laws, the older laws and the UN Convention on Electronic Contracting, so that you have the most modern regime, because of course e-commerce and e-government is regional and global. You can't have different standards existing within different countries and different rules. Okay. I had moved ahead where I spoke about the ETAs being omnibus legislation, and it applies and amends all the acts, save and except some countries have exceptions. And even with these exceptions, I'm also advising that these exceptions can be removed and new regulations put in. So for instance, New Zealand has actually done some new orders in the past few weeks, the past couple months, so that you can actually take execution of deeds and wills over a Zoom teleconference. So a person can actually put their house in order in terms of their will, or a person can actually transfer property without having to go and visit the lawyer personally, or without having a notary public come into face-to-face. So it can be done electronically now. It's witnessed over the internet. In the US, they have started to use DocuSign. DocuSign is a sort of digital signature which has a higher level of security than a plain electronic signature. So they've actually they've been using DocuSign. Even the federal government in the US uses DocuSign for many of their transactions. But even privately, DocuSign has been started to be used by lawyers for transfer of properties and deeds. So those are things we also need to look at to see if we want those changes or how desirable those changes, especially as we don't know how long what we are experiencing now is going to last, if there's going to be a resurgence, how safe it's going to be to be going about the place. And of course, wills, not that you have to be an old person to be wills, but wills will obviously be done or be a concern of older people and persons who are more vulnerable. So we have to look at ways of protecting these people while at the same time allowing business to move on. In electronic signatures, this was also a very surprising thing to me, that a lot of people in the Caribbean did not think electronic signatures are legal in the Caribbean. So I had to explain that we are already using electronic signatures every day. When you go to do your mobile banking or online banking, you're using electronic signature. You're shopping on Amazon, you're using electronic signature. When people do the US visa applications, they're using an electronic signature. So it's already a fact of life. So there is no issue in terms of the legality under the ETA or in terms of the reality. So there is absolutely no reason why you cannot sign documents with a government service, or personally, there's no reason why when you cannot sign a contract electronically and that is not binding, right? How much time do I have left? Okay, there. Well, you will get the slide to explain these things. I'm just trying to go through quickly. I was pulling out the various sections to explain why electronic signatures are legally binding. And I was also going to talk a bit on data protection and privacy in terms of this is something that has not received a lot of attention by policymakers and by countries over a number of years. Only recently, there has been an upsurge in interest in some places. But of course, if you're going to move to do things more electronically, you're going to be having people's data on a larger basis. With terms of e-payments, you're going to have credit card records, you're going to be having people's personal information. So this, and you're going to also have data sharing between agencies and between financial institutions, or from a financial institution to a vendor. So all of these things require some protections for the public, for you as a business owner, for the government who's conducting transactions. So it's just to point out that while it's something that about 7 countries in the Caribbean have right now, we need to pay more attention to it. Thank you. But I'll save the rest of the time for questions.
Tira, I'll tell you this much. I got like maybe 2 or 3 people say, don't rush Tira. We're in it for the long haul. We want to hear all she has to say. So Tira, I apologize for rushing you, but thank you very much for providing the information that you've provided. And if there's anything that you wanted to say, that because we rushed you, we were not allowing you enough time to say it, please go ahead so that I won't have my audience writing me in the chat telling me to leave you alone. One of the questions that came up was, can you say what kinds of updates are needed for those countries that have e-transaction acts? Do you have an idea on what's needed to make them more modern that will support the business environment for e-commerce right now for those countries who have the older version? And another question I saw was, let me see if I can find it. All right, well, let me, oh yes, there was one about where someone was asking, you mentioned the e-Transactions Act not being in St. Lucia right now, but that they're on their way to making that happen this year. Somebody wanted you to just, they actually asked, what do you mean? If you can clarify. So I've left that. And if there are any movements in Guyana, those were the questions I've seen so far. I'll check again while you answer those.
Okay, thank you. So I'll answer going forward. So Guyana, I have not seen any movements in Guyana, unfortunately. They did enact a couple of years ago a new cybercrime law, which was much needed and which was a positive move, but I have not seen any movements towards the Electronic Transactions Act as yet. hopefully they would make a move this year. St. Lucia is in the midst of several digital transformation projects, which you may have seen in the news media and reports. So they're looking at moving to more e-government services, similar to what Trinidad and Tobago has with their TT BizLink. And so you'll be able to do everything from getting your driver's permit online to applying for licenses. And part of that process also is to simplify the procedures and processes, because as you know, a lot of our laws in more Caribbean countries are so antiquated and are based on all these very bureaucratic processes that make absolutely no sense. So, and of course, if you're moving now to a digital solution, you can't migrate all this bureaucratic and nonsensical steps into the solution. So that has to be dealt with, which will bring me to the very first question. But St. Lucia is also going to put an online ports community system that was also in the media. So they are right now looking at upgrading and changing and putting into force the required Electronic Transactions Act to make these systems operational. And I know they're going to actually try and put some of it into being in the next few weeks.
Thank you. Yes, there was one last one.
The other question, which was the most important one from my perspective as to what changes are needed, there are several things are needed. One, the changes for things like for e-government, you have forms. So it also cuts across the question on St. Lucia and what St. Lucia is doing and what other countries are doing. So right now, say you have forms under our laws and regulations, right? When you move to e-solution, you're not going to have paper forms again, and it's not going to look necessarily when you as a business person or a customer, member of the public is inputting things online. It's not necessarily going to look like what the form is, and then your fields might actually change. So you should put in your ETA the ability for the various departments to make these forms administratively and to make changes to these fields administratively, as opposed to having a form set out in a regulation that they then go to the government printery and purchase and then fill in and bring to you. So it's a step beyond taking these forms and putting them online. It's a step to where the form is basically fields that you fill in online. And then you could always have on the portal or the website a fact section explaining, well, this is the information and these are the documents you'll have to upload. So that is one of the key things, and that is something we have actually discussed with the Attorney General's office in St. Lucia, because it's very clear if you want to migrate to an electronic system for all these different government agencies and for 40 or 50 different sets of laws, you will take 5 years to amend those laws. The same thing I've worked with on some of the investment laws in Jamaica, and the same thing will take 5 years to draft amendments to change those laws, and we can't wait 5 years to change that. So the solution is, as is used in other countries, have it that these forms can be created and changed administratively.
Fantastic.
Let me
ask you two others that came in that I think are really, really good questions. There's one about the safety of e-signature from identity theft. And then there's another that I find really, really interesting. If you could tell us, what is the recipe? What do countries need to have in place in terms of laws, regulations, policies to facilitate e-commerce? I think that's a big one, but I really wanted to get that in there before we end today.
Okay, thanks. The one on the security, we have basically 3 levels of electronic signatures. You'd have at the most basic level, like a scan signature. You'd have like a biometric print, or you just basically have somebody sign, and you have a biometric version of it. You have a second level where you're looking at things like login. This is like for, say, on the TT BizLink on a trade portal where you would have registered from before and you got a number, and the same thing happens in the bank, and that's what you use for your online banking and for your mobile banking. So that is a more secure level. And then you have a third level where you use, which is what we call a digital signature. And this is where you actually have a certificate. So, and this is here your signature is encrypted. So say something like DocuSign is using this. So Verizon is a provider of these digital certificates. And you also have like homegrown certificate providers who are basically resellers of these certificates. And these are considered very secure. It's very hard for somebody to, the average person, to forge these certificates. It's not impossible, but the same way it's not impossible for someone to forge a handwritten certificate, a handwritten signature either. So what we advise is that you use the level of certificate according to what transaction you are doing. So if you are signing a deed that can be signed electronically, of course, you're going to use a digital certificate. You're going to use DocuSign, or you're going to use another certification authority that allows you to sign this. So, for instance, when I do projects with the IDB, the contract comes in my email with the ability to sign using DocuSign right there. So they have, I am both secure knowing that the IDB manager who signed has signed this DocuSign, and they are secure knowing I'm the one who actually signed it. And there's, of course, all the digital evidence to know this was signed by this person when, right? There are other contracts, that I might do with other agencies, and it's simply they email it and I insert my electronic signature, which is like a scanned signature. Or sometimes I even take the scan of my DocuSign signature and insert it. That's what I really do now, right? And the same thing, they insert an electronic scan of their signature, and it's perfectly binding because with the, so you say I would do that with UNDP, but UNDP does not think that I am not who I am saying I am. And the same way, I don't think UNDP is making any misrepresentation. So it's a matter of the actual, what type of transaction you're doing and what level of security you require. So all it's recommended you keep all three legal. In the EU, all three are legal. In the US, all three levels are legal, but you just have to select the signature according to what is required for the transaction. The other question on the recipe, the major things that are required are the Electronic Transactions Act. You need the cybercrime law, of course. You need data protection. You need some consumer protection legislation. Right? But more important, I think, from even in countries where many of these things have been put in, you need change management, especially in the public sector, because even if you're doing business to business, a lot of the business you're doing still have to go through some government agency, be it customs, be it your trade licensing, be it your food safety, or you're even doing your income taxes. And there is where you often get the bottleneck in doing your business because they have not changed. And I know this also from working in the sector since 1997. I've been working in ICT, law and regulation in Caribbean. And unfortunately, this is where we have put in electronic system. What happens unless so this is now what we do is a rule when we put in a system, no more paper. Because what has happened, I can tell you from my own personal experience, is they say there's a transition period which they could use paper and the electronic system, and what you end up having is a duplicate system. And not only that, neither aspect of the duplicate system is complete. So you have some things in paper and you have some things on the electronic system. So it's only when you transaction to a pure electronic system that you will actually get the real change. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I don't know about anybody else, but I felt my brain growing. You know, you're teaching me so much through that conversation. I mean, we can do all the training on e-commerce. We can have the websites up. We can do everything that we can to make e-commerce work. But if we don't have the business environment sorted out, if we don't have that change management that you talked about, even when we have the laws, you know, we still will have challenges in the Caribbean in terms of e-commerce. So we thank you very much for that, that very insightful presentation, Tira. And if you don't mind, we will also be sharing your contact information with the 340-something audience that is here with us today, even though we're 11 minutes over time. So thank you so much. I want to say a very special thank you to all our presenters today. Louis had to leave, but Gilbert is still there. Gilbert, is there anything you want to say before we wrap up? You have maybe 2 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So as in terms of policies, I know the last question you asked of what policies are put in place. As I said to you before, when you look at the American e-commerce and the Chinese e-commerce, Asian e-commerce, a lot of that was driven by policies, government policies that were put in place to push e-commerce. For instance, the removal of taxes on internet sales that drove e-commerce sales in the United States. The subsidization of e-commerce in China and the United States also drove that. So our representatives have to look at how we drive e-commerce sales. It brings more money into local economies, which means it drives more jobs in those economies as well. So we have to look at those policies as well and see where we can change and implement ones that drives e-commerce.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Gilbert. All right. On behalf of Caribbean Export, I want to say a very special thank you to all our presenters. And I want to say a special thank you to you, our audience, who joined us for this third edition of our e-commerce series, Talking Exports. Please join us next week, Friday, same time, where we will be looking at shipping and general logistics as it pertains to e-commerce. And we look forward to seeing you. Have a very pleasant weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you as well.
Thank you. Bye.